All right, Brad Garlinghouse was interviewed. This was last week at Token 49, but I don't see a lot of people kind of playing these clips and talking about it. Brad Garlinghouse gets into Gary Gensler. He gets into the CFTC. He talks about the competitors to Ripple. He talks about the market and where we're headed. He answers a lot of questions. He talks about the NFT space. There's some things that he can't answer directly, but let's go ahead and play this. It's a 15-minute chat with Annabelle Drewlers, a TV reporter from Bloomberg. She asks a lot of really good questions. She doesn't look like too thrilled to be on stage, which I would be like, my heart would be pumping. I'd be ecstatic, but let's go ahead and get into this. I'll stop and give you some context when I need to. But other than that, let's have a good time and let's listen to what Brad has to say about the market and all this other stuff.
Welcome everyone to day 2, heading into the afternoon. Today we're going to be just chatting for the next 15 minutes with Brad here. We've already spoken a couple of times over this conference, so it's a good way. So I wanted to start with something pretty big picture. You think about your conversations over the last couple of days, because you arrived here Sunday. What have been the main sort of talking points? And has anything bothered you about those talking points where you think
that's
misplaced?
interesting. Yeah. Look, I think not surprisingly, a lot of people are very interested in regulatorily what's going on. Frankly, because of what Ripple has been through, people want to talk about the SEC. So that's been a big theme, and I think that is an important theme for every entrepreneur who wants to operate in the United States right now. The other big theme that I think has been underplayed a little bit, I think the stablecoin market remains perplexing in some ways. What's going to happen with CBDCs, what's going to happen with regulation of stablecoins, what's going on with Tether, what's going on with the change in USDC, which,
Okay, guys, understand this. Tether has never had an audit. The last USDT, the last company that went in to audit Tether's books had to quit and delete all of the work that they did as Tether was trying to use it to show, hey, we got audited, we're okay. Just be careful. There's $80 billion in USDT, only $25 billion in USDC. USDC does all the actual reporting. Tether does not. 2018, only 4 people controlled the majority of Tether.
I'm not an expert at, but those are the bigger themes. I will also say for me, the energy here, I don't know if you just the experience of getting to this stage, it is packed. People talk about it's crypto winter. There's a muted crypto excitement, and that's not what I'm feeling.
Not on this channel.
You said the SEC, and I think for everyone in the audience here, you're one of the exchanges that you think of first when it comes to the SEC. But why do you think that the SEC went after you guys specifically?
Exchanges?
It's a really good question, and there's lots of Twitter kind of conversation about that. The strange thing about this to me is in 2018, there's a relatively famous speech given by a guy named Bill Hinman, who is one of the top guys at the SEC, saying that ETH is not a security.
Okay, if you missed all of this about Bill Hinman, I'll give you just a really quick recap. Twitter sleuths through FOIA requests and different things have proven Bill Hinman took $15 million from his former or his current law firm where he was an advisor, Simpson Thacher. Simpson Thacher is the attorney and law firm for the Ethereum Alliance. They paid him $15 million. Also, Joseph Lubin and Vitalik Buterin, who are the founders and promoters of Ethereum, helped Bill Hinman write his speech. Bill Hinman lied under oath, saying that it was all his own words. He didn't have help. He lied, and he was paid a bribe. That is fact, and it's not disputed. Okay?
I actually remember.
And also, too, that is why the SEC is not going to want to pursue suing Ripple anymore, because they will call Bill Hinman to the stand and they will ask him questions about this. What I want to know is, was it $15 million to give Ethereum the free pass and then sue Ripple? Or was it just the free pass? That is really the question that's been eating at me, and I think about it a lot because personally, Bill Hinman was behind the scenes pushing the lawsuit against Ripple. He had left the SEC as his job as the new administration was going to come in, and weeks leading up to Jay Clayton's last day where he filed this lawsuit against Ripple, Bill Hinman was behind the scenes pushing the lawsuit as Ripple was trying to say, hey, maybe we can settle or do something before we go into this lawsuit. So Bill Hinman is a crook in my book, but now you're caught up. Okay?
For that speech, I remember thinking, like, this is great news. If ETH is not a security, and you think about the similarities between ETH and XRP and how the underlying technology operates, and one of the things he really pushed on was this idea around decentralization, how it operates, and I felt like it was really good news. And so one of the things that's really complicated to me is, wait, how did we go from ETH is very clearly not a security to XRP is a security? And the whole time, by the way, Ripple was meeting with the SEC. And I think one irony to this story just happened, which is getting underplayed. There's an advisor at Andreessen Horowitz. This guy, Bill Hinman, who gave the speech, is now an advisor at Andreessen Horowitz. He just updated his bio on the Andreessen Horowitz website to say that he brought clarity to the crypto market while at the SEC.
Yeah.
Are you effing kidding me? This is the guy who added confusion to what is, like, how do we define crypto and securities? And I don't know, when you ask the question, like, why did that end up happening? I do think there will continue to be a lot of attention on this guy, Bill Hinman, because he was getting paid $15 million by his law firm who was representing the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance while he's doing favors for the Ethereum community. People use words like conspiracy, they use words like corruption. I'm not going to say that because I don't know,
right.
But it's a fascinating story that I do not think we've heard the end of.
Yep. The issues are ongoing with the SEC. 7 nights of the week, how many do you think that you're losing sleep to over this?
I lost a lot of sleep when it started. I lost a lot of sleep during the fight. The first 90 days after we got sued by the SEC was a pretty dark period, to be honest. There's very high turnover at Ripple. We lost a lot of employees because they're like, look, this is going to be a tough fight. The people who stuck around, I think, were glad. We ended up having a record 2021, a record 2022. But there were some tough nights for sure. More recently, I am sleeping very peacefully about the SEC. I think after getting the judge's decision where she very clearly said XRP in and of itself is not a security, that's the law of the land of the United States. They can appeal that, they can do all those things, but once a judge has said that, you have way more, you have upper hand, if you will. And I also...
Since this, guys, just to give you an update, if you haven't been watching the crypto space, the SEC tried to appeal this decision from the judge, and they got smacked down. Smacked down. Annalisa Torres has never been overturned on appeal, and her record remains strong. So the SEC really doesn't have anywhere to go here but to settle with Ripple, and it does look like we're going to get a settlement sooner or later here because they do not want people like Bill Hinman on the stand, and I would love that, right? For him to lie under oath and then more things to happen to Bill. I think there's some things that need to happen to people that are corrupt, especially in government officials, but corruption is live and here in the...
I also think what's happened, and we talked a little about this yesterday, but the judges who have ruled against the SEC, both in our case, the judge used the expression that the SEC, this is a quote, the SEC has not followed a faithful allegiance to the law. That is harsh. A judge saying that to a U.S. agency, they are not following a faithful allegiance to the law. That's super harsh. And then the Grayscale decision, which was a week or two ago, in that decision, a three-judge panel unanimously ruled, and the decision there said that the SEC was being arbitrary and capricious. And that is some damning language.
The risk of regulatory overreach is something that could eventually reach the Supreme Court, but we're also approaching a U.S. election. So which administration would you want to see in the White House?
Look, I try to avoid all political questions. I remember a couple years ago when it was Trump versus... I don't remember. 4 years ago, who was he? I guess it was Biden, because I can't remember. No, it was Trump, Hillary. Anyway, look, I don't think it's as critical Republican or Democrat. I think what's more critical is who they are appointing to some of these key positions. The head of the CFTC, I think, happens to be a very smart, impressive guy right now. I think the head of the SEC is... Joke. I got to be careful which words I choose because there's a lot of people listening. I think he's not doing the United States any favors, and I think... he truly is putting like a power play ahead of what is sound policy. Yep. And you contrast that with being here in Singapore, is attracting jobs. They're protecting consumers. They're making sure markets have integrity, but they're allowing growth. We've doubled the size of the Ripple office here in Singapore in the last year because we're going to invest in jurisdictions that have clear rules. And the U.S., like, why would, we're hiring some people in the U.S., but not nearly at the pace we used to. A couple of years ago, about 25% of our employees were outside the United States. That's now over 40%, and that's going to continue to grow.
What would happen if there was further progress on regulations in the U.S.? How would you change your investment approach or your hiring approach, for instance? Are you going to go back to being a U.S. company, a U.S.-focused company?
Look, I think by nature, all of the entrepreneurs in this space blockchains are global by nature. And I think it's more about where are your customers, where is the value proposition, who you're signing up. So I don't think about it so much as if there are clear rules, it gives us the opportunity to engage more customers and where the customers sign up. 90% of our customers are non-US. So that,
Okay, 90% of their customers, okay, they're institutional, they're banks, they're central banks. 90% are not in the U.S. Obviously, central banks are going to be outside the U.S., but think about that for a second, right? They had to go out and form new partnerships, new alliances globally. And I think in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, and I don't hear many YouTubers or whatever Twitter people talking about this, but I think this helped Ripple because they weren't so focused on the US. They actually had to go out and stretch their legs, make those partnerships across the sea, and it's really benefited them on a global scale. Now, are the US customers going to come back when all of this stuff is said and done? Absolutely, they are going to. We just don't know who's going to come back, like your Bank of America's, your Wells or whatever, and in what fashion they're going to come back. But I personally think that helped Ripple. I could be wrong and you could disagree with me. All good. Let me know down in the comments if you disagree, because I'd love to know your opinion.
that's today, and that's partly because of the SEC lawsuit. If the United States government sues you, U.S. companies, you're radioactive. They don't want to touch you. And it's not that they're passing judgment on whether you're right or wrong. They're just saying, look, we're going to wait and see. And I get it. If I were them, I would probably do the same thing. So I think when I think about when will we change our investment approach to U.S., it's not just getting the rules clear. It's actually also getting clarity from, is the SEC going to keep suing people? And we spent well over $100 million defending ourselves already. If this ends up going to the Supreme Court, we're going to spend probably another $100 million. Not a lot of companies could afford to do that. And I'm frankly, look, to be controversial, there are companies in the crypto space who folded their cards. The SEC came after them, and they were like, you know what, I'm just going to pay a fine, and I'm going to move on. I think we need companies, and I'll give Grayscale credit, I'll give Coinbase credit, they're fighting the fight. Clearly, I'll give Ripple credit. Like, when a bully comes up to you, you got to stand up to the bully.
Sometimes, though, you're not quite as big a company as you might project.
You mean
You can finish the sentence.
Statement.
I was going to say something about pudgy penguins.
What I want to say is that we hear a lot of big claims in this space. There are still questions about the transparency and credibility of companies. So for people that are on the outside and perhaps don't fully understand the underlying technology because it is complex, how do you sort the wheat from the chaff?
Look, one of the number one pieces of advice I give to entrepreneurs building in the crypto space is be careful about over-promising. Yeah. The number one thing that I think about to succeed in crypto is you have to survive. Yeah. I know that sounds crazy, but look, a year ago, Digital Currency Group was one of the most important companies in the crypto space. Where are we today? FTX was one of the most important companies in the crypto space a year ago. I genuinely believe that. Had you asked me a year ago right now, I would have told you FTX is absolutely one of the most important companies in our space. ECG is still there in a tough spot in a very public fight with the Winklevi. Look,
just look at this expression on her face. If I was interviewing Brad, I would have the biggest smile on my face. Like, I wouldn't be able to stop smiling. But this person is like, another day, I got to interview another blockchain person. I wish this person would smile more, but it's all good.
None of that stuff is good for building your business. And so I think what Ripple has tried to do is this just basic idea of slow and steady wins the race. Yeah. We're not thinking about how do we maximize the next 2 or 3 months. We're thinking about where is the world 5 years from now, and we're taking a very long view about our investments. We have never had a layoff. We have grown our employee base slowly and steady. I think a lot of people, because of the hype cycles in crypto, they get really excited and they go out and say shit that they shouldn't say. Yeah. And then they're hiring and then they have to lay people off. And I just, in my tenure of 8.5, almost 9 years at Ripple, there have been a lot of major crypto companies that have come and gone that I thought were really scary competitors that ended up just playing into the hype cycle. And I think just entrepreneurs have to avoid that.
Out of the biggest companies today, when you think about who is playing into the hype cycle, who don't you think will be here in another couple of years?
I'm going to dodge that question as best I can. Look, I think have gotten ahead of themselves. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of companies that got very caught up in the NFT hype cycle. The NFT market is obviously I know there are a lot of people may have stayed from the last panel, which is a lot about NFTs. I didn't listen to the whole thing. The NFT market's very different today than it was a few years ago. And companies that built their business enabling NFT payments, there are a couple of companies that have already gone away. There's a company called Wire based in Miami that's gone away. And so you need to make sure that segment you're investing in has longevity and staying power. In the NFT market, obviously, I don't think it's gone away. I think it's fundamentally changed to be more about utility-based NFTs tokenization of various assets, which are effectively NFTs, as opposed to just how do you value a NFT that's a piece of art. I don't know what the value of Van Gogh versus a Monet versus a Picasso. That's not my expertise, and I don't know how we think about that in a world of a digitized version of those things. That was a good way of dodging. I didn't really answer your question.
Okay, maybe I can think about it in a different way. The technologies that we're talking about today, how many do you think we'll be talking about in the future?
Look, I think stablecoins are absolutely here to stay, and whether or not it's just Tether and USDC, I don't know. I think there'll be other major players entering that market. We saw PayPal play in that game. So I think the stablecoin category is absolutely here to stay. I think what's going on in the tokenization of assets, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in there. Tokenization of debt, tokenization of securities, tokenization of real estate, tokenization of art. I'm a big believer in those categories. Ripple has invested. Ripple's invested over $500 million in over 60 companies, and we will continue to play offense there.
Something that you can answer more clearly, since you do have some investment in CBDCs, but when are you going to move into stablecoins?
Yes.
When?
Yes. Look, I think the stablecoin market is fascinating. Ripple, at our core, we are a payments infrastructure company. We use stablecoins today. We use XRP when it's appropriate. We use stablecoins when it's appropriate. We're solving customer problems. Will we do or say more than that? Not today.
Okay, we've got 30 seconds left. What would be your one piece of advice to people that are in the room that are working in this space today?
Domicile outside of the United States. If there's one thing I could go back and look, we talked about it way back. If I could go back and re-domicile Ripple outside the United States, we would have saved many hundreds of millions of dollars and headaches. And it's just, anyway, I just, the piece of advice I've given entrepreneurs for a long time now, if you're starting now, do not have a nexus in the United States. It's a bad idea. It will come back to bite you, I promise it. The other piece of advice is really just take the long view. Do not... Just avoid getting caught up in the hype cycle. Slow and steady will win the race, and just keep at it. But don't go out and make huge promises to the market that you can't back up, because this market is all about trust and transparency. And if you are not being transparent in a truthful, trusted way, you will erode your credibility quickly. And I think Ripple has done well by being transparent over and over again. And people have learned that, look, we put out these XRP markets report. We are totally transparent about what we're doing in the XRP market. And that builds trust over time. And that builds trust in the company as well as the ecosystem.
Brad, thank you for your time.
All right, guys, there's some really good advice from Brad. I talked about a lot of different topics there. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, please share. Liking the video gets the video in front of more people that are not subscribed to the channel. We're trying to grow the channel to 15,000 subscribers this month. We can do it with your help.